What I want to do in this video is to show you how to find literature and then also how to properly cite that literature. So we're going to use the first week assignment as an example for me to show you how to do this. We're going to take a look at doing a literature search and then citing that literature using your first homework assignment as an example. Note that this is asking you for at least 3 references in APA 7 format. We want to find scientific references, so we want to look in journal articles that are scientific. We don't want to go just looking on Google just to find regular websites. We want something that is more reliable than that. The first way I'm going to show you how to do this is using Google Scholar. Google Scholar works very well. It's way better than regular Google because it allows you to find scholarly information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new tab up here and I'm going to type in Scholar Google. One of the things I can do is an advanced search when I can pull down these 3 little lines over here. I don't have to do that, but I can. Let's go ahead and do it that way and go into advanced search. I want it to talk about zoo habitat design and wolves. Let's say I want this to be somewhere in the last 10 years. So I'm going to say from 2015 to 2025. I could look for a particular journal or a particular author. A couple of things I want to show you here. Everything over here that shows a PDF or in some cases an HTML, that should take me to the full text of that paper. Sometimes if it's over here, all I'm going to get is an abstract. You don't want that because when you put a citation in your writing, you should have read the whole paper. If you just read the abstract, you're missing a whole bunch of what's there. And if you are citing something because someone else said it, but you never went to check the original paper to see if they actually did say that, you could get yourself in trouble because what if the paper you just read got it wrong? They miscited somebody and now you're misciting them because they did. You don't want to go down that road. So you always want to read the original article yourself that you are citing. So if I click on this, it should bring up the full article. So this is a research article. It's telling me right here it's a research article. There's a couple of different types of literature that you'll be using. One looks like this. It's a research article. They are presenting new data. These are data that have not been presented before. If I go down, I'm going to find a couple of key features. I'm going to find methods because they collected data. They got to tell me how they did it. So there should be areas where they're giving me some data and they're interpreting that data. They have a results section. I see methods. I see results. This is a research paper. The other type of paper is a review paper. You're not going to find this in a review paper because a review paper, which we'll look at in a minute, is actually taking sort of a body of literature that maybe hasn't been summarized in 10 years or so, and it's kind of compiling what's been done, but it's not adding really new stuff. It's just compiling what's already been done. That's a review paper. Both of those are considered peer-reviewed, which is what you want. It's in a scientific journal. Other scientists have looked at it and approved that this is good work. You want that. Websites, blogs, those are not peer-reviewed. You really don't want those. So you want a scientific journal and you want it to either be a primary research paper or a review paper, which is actually considered a secondary source because they didn't do the actual research. So we have primary research articles, then we also have secondary like review articles. Books are usually considered tertiary sources, so another step down depending on the type of book. There are some books that are kind of like giant review papers. A group of people get together and they say, you know what, we haven't really collated in a really long time is all of this stuff about wolf habitats and design of habitats and how zoos handle that. There have been tons and tons of papers written on it. We are going to create a book that talks about this. We're going to get the experts in the field to write different chapters for it. And so this is called a contributed book. You'll have an editor and then you'll have these chapters written by these different experts. Sometimes those are still considered like secondary sources instead of tertiary sources. Primary is research, secondary is review papers, maybe a contributed book. Textbooks and other books are typically tertiary. Blogs, websites, we don't even see those in scientific writing. We're not using those. Right underneath here, there's a button that says Cite. If I click on that, it's going to bring up the correct citation. And I can copy and paste that into my Word document. There's a caveat here. Sometimes it's not accurate. Sometimes you'll see something that's in all caps and it shouldn't be. They're not doing that here. That's good. The only thing I see incorrect here is you see that they've listed 7 authors and then they have the ... the ellipses, and then they have the last author, and they have the year. Current APA 7 format says that we should include all authors unless there are 20 or more. If there are more than 20 authors, yeah, we can go go ahead and use those ellipses. If not, we really should include them all. I usually try to err on including them all. Now, one thing you would have to fix here, because it's not coming across here, is genus and species should always be italicized. And if I went back to the original article title, I'm sure it is, we have author's name, last name, comma, first initial. That's it, not the first name, just the first initial, period, comma, and then last name, first initial on through. Year is in parentheses. We have the title of the article here, Understanding Habitat Selection, all the way through to where we see this italicized part here. So that is all the article title. This diversity and distributions, that is the name of the journal. 30 is the volume number, 1 is the issue, and 71 to 86 are the pages. That is a complete citation. We have to have that in there. Now, if you also have a URL that goes to the paper or a DOI for the paper that goes to the full paper, you can include it, but you don't have to. That's kind of optional, but this is not. You can have this without a DOI. You cannot have a DOI without this. Now let's go back to that paper for a minute. If I was trying to do this from this paper instead of using the Google Scholar citation button, I can do that. I've got everybody's last name and their first initial, then put the year on it. I don't know why sometimes they'll do received, revised, accepted, all that. If you looked at the previous one, it was actually 2024. It's actually the 2024 right there is the publication date that we saw on Google Scholar. We would have 2024. Then we would have the article title. Then we would have the journal title. And that journal title is Diversity and Distributions. Then we would have the volume and pages. And there actually was an issue number. It's not showing down there, but there was an issue number. Here is the DOI. So if you want to put the DOI on there, you can. Typically, you can find this information on here. It's just obviously quite a bit easier to just use that little Google Cite button. Now, one of the things you can also do is you can start to narrow down your search. So if I go back over to my search, I could start putting in different phrases if I wanted to. Another resource that I want to share with you is the Unity Com Hub. So this is the link here. So when you come in here to the Unity Communications Hub, you'll see a lot of different things down here. Use of generative AI, which I strongly encourage you to look at if you are using any sort of generative AI or AI correcting app when you're doing your writing. And then also this one over here, working with source information. This is what I want to point out here. So it talks a little bit about finding credible sources, what they are, how to find them, and then also citing your sources. And that does go into how to conduct searches as well. Let's go into citing sources. You're going to need to have all of this information in here. So you're going to have the author, the title of the work, whether it's an article in a journal or a book. You're going to give the date of the publication. Typically, we're only going to put in the year of the publication. If it's something like a news story, that's when you start seeing month and day, but typically you don't see that in most references. What is the source of it? So what is the name of the journal? What is the publisher of the book? And then you're also going to include a volume and issue number if it's a journal, and also page numbers. And you can include a URL or a DOI. However, when you're doing a journal citation, you also want to include all of that other information. So that's just in addition to, here's the author's name, Smith, and then their first initials only, the year. This is the title of the article. Notice that each word is not capitalized. We did capitalize the first one there, and we capitalized Amazon because that's a proper noun. But otherwise, you do not capitalize each word of the article title. You do capitalize each word of the journal title. This is the journal here. So this is the Journal of Insect Biology. This is the volume, 83. In parentheses here, we have the issue, and then these are the page numbers. Notice we don't have the word volume written in there. We don't have the word pages written in there. We just put them in this format, and everybody knows, if you know APA 7 format, that that's what you're looking at. If you do have a URL or a DOI, you can put that here. But again, you don't want to just put that and leave this other information out. It's actually okay to put this information here, the volume, pages, etc., and leave the URL off. It's not okay to do it the other way. That would be what your end citation would look like in your reference section. This is another example. Here we have authors, the year, the name of the article. This is the journal, is Oikos. This is the volume, 120, and then pages 321 to 326. So for this one, maybe there weren't separate issues in that volume. For the in-text citation, where you use information from this article, at the end of that sentence, before the period, you're going to have in parentheses the author's name. If it's 3 or more, you're going to use this et al. So you just use the first author here and et al. Notice up here, we listed all the authors. In your in-citation, you list them all. But in your in-text citation, if it's 2, you would list both of the last names. But if it's 3 or more, you just put et al. There. Now, another way to do this is if you wrote the sentence that said Allerton et al. Showed that, and you use this name in your sentence, then what you would have up here is you'd say Allerton et al. In parentheses, the 2011, and then you would finish your sentence. But you wouldn't also then include it at the end. So you can include it as part of your actual sentence, or you can include it at the end of the sentence. You don't do both. And notice what they're citing here. They haven't put it in quotation marks because they're paraphrasing, but they are giving me something that this particular author first published in their study, showing that 90% of the tropical plant species are animal pollinated. So these authors are the first ones to report this particular piece of evidence. As it says here, you don't necessarily want to use directly quoted material. In scientific writing, we typically use quotes very sparingly. If you pick up a typical scientific journal, you're not going to see a lot of quotes in it, very few. So you need to learn how to paraphrase because that's what is expected in science. In addition, even if you do quote, Unity has a policy that 15% or less of the material is allowed to be quoted. So you may not use quotes around more than 15%. And when you're doing that percentage calculation, just like when you're doing a word count, you do not include the reference section. So take only the part you've written, not the references, count up how many words are in it, and then go back and see how much you have quoted if you've got anything quoted, and make sure that it's 15% or less of that written material. If you do a direct quote, that's when you actually put in a page number. So normally you would not see a page number here, you would just see Mojado 2015, but if you are doing a direct quote, then you would use a page number. Another thing that is very important is that when you use that in-text citation, make sure you are doing it correctly. This is very important that we give credit to the people that came up with the ideas or the data. And so just sort of randomly sticking an in-text citation someplace where it doesn't really belong is considered academic dishonesty. So you want to make sure that where you are putting it in your text really does go with the article you are attributing it to. Please make sure you check all of that as well. For the first week assignments, if this is not done correctly, you will receive a 0 and then you will have an opportunity to fix it. After the first week, if it's not done correctly, you will receive the 0s. You will not have the ability to fix it. If it's done incorrectly, it is also Unity's policy that we are to report that as an academic integrity violation. So please be very clear, and if you have any questions on how to do any of this, you please contact me.